Good afternoon. This is Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat program for ADHDers. We're trying to make the world safe for ADHD. My background, basically, and I've probably told you this every time you've seen the show, but I'm a clinical neuropsychologist. I am in private practice. About at least half of what I do has to do with ADHD. Evaluations, treatment recommendations, so on, for both children and adults. And I also am the father of an ADHD child. And that was back in the days when we didn't know a whole heck of a lot about ADHD, or how to best treat it, or we weren't even, a lot of us, even sure that there was such a thing. Okay, we had a lot of problems with that, and you still do. If you read the internet at all, you hear all the time people making comments, or you read all the time people making comments that there's no such thing as ADHD. That's just, well, name it, it's just bad parenting, bad diet, you name it. But the scientific research, and their ADHD is likely the most researched disability we have. There are literally thousands of research papers published every day on the topic of ADHD. And so it's a little tricky, if you're not really real sophisticated about research, and there's honestly no particular reason why you should be. It's hard to tell what's really truth and proven from what's, make my Norwegian fisherman rich kind of topics. Let's put it that way. I don't want to get too far into that. I'll get into all kinds of trouble, I'm sure. I wanted to talk about passion, in the sense of intense enthusiasm. Okay, like having a passion for his job, or she had a passion for this subject, or a passion for this activity, kind of thing. What we see is, and basically, an intense interest in an area. And ADHDers and the parents of ADHDers, you're in a little bit of a situation where you pretty much have to identify what your child's passions are, because that's going to control everything else. They have what we call an interest-based attention system. Thank you, Dr. Dodson, for that. Basically, if they can pay attention like crazy if they're interested in the area. If they are not interested in the area, they have a terrible time paying attention. It's just very difficult for them. And this isn't about being oppositional or defiant or any of that other stuff. It's the way their system works. Most of the rest of us are running around with, if you tell me I have to do this or bad things are going to happen, I'm probably going to do it. And that's the way most of the world is, and that's the way most of the world works. ADHDers, not so much. They have a real hard time with that, and they don't really, as probably most of you out there who are parenting ADHD kids know, punishment isn't all that effective, honestly. You just keep... There's certainly no such thing as one trial learning. You have to keep hammering at it for them to finally get it, and it takes a lot longer than it does a kid that doesn't have ADHD. But I guess the good news about that is, if you find their passions, the things they are just really interested in, then life gets real easy, because that controls everything else. So it's up to you as a parent to identify their passions. They're things that they really naturally do well or really enjoy doing, and really encourage the heck out of those, because that can drive everything else. Now with ADHD, you've got this, like I said, you've got an interest-based attention system. So they pretty much have to have a passion for a topic before they'll do anything with it. And a lot of us as parents have to get over probably, basically some of the way we were trained. When I was a kid, which was a while ago, your job was to get a good education, to get a good job, and to retire with a good pension. Good retirement benefits. That was it. I didn't care about how happy you were doing what you were doing, or how excited you were about what you did every day. That was not the main thing. The main thing was safety, being safe and secure, financially secure, financially safe. That's mostly what it was. Of course, both of my parents lived through the Depression, so they saw what it was like when people were actually starving on the streets of all the major cities in the United States. And that made a very strong impression. Now, fortunately, we don't have to worry about that so much. And in fact, the rules have changed so much that I'm not sure there is any such thing as career safety or occupational safety, whatever you want to call it. It seems like the model now is that people are hired short-term sort of as consultants, and then when the project is done, they're let go, and then they hook on with some other company for another project, and so on. So your career is not 25 years with one company. Your career is 2 years with this company and 4 years with that company, and so on, until you get old enough to retire. And you better have done the investing yourself, because that's the only way it's going to work out for you. That changes a whole bunch of different things about what we think will get our kids to a place where they'll be safe and secure. One of the things we absolutely know is that in the marketplace, you have to have some kind of skills. It could be computers, could be video, could be audio, but you have to have some set of skills that are marketable. And I was actually honest today in the newspaper. I was reading a story about e-game leagues. And if you aren't familiar with this, remember when video games were like going to rot your child's brain and were a worthless waste of time and so on and so forth? Well, now it's a professional sport. And people are making, according to this story I just read, people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year playing video games. And colleges have started e-game teams that are varsity, where they have uniforms and they represent the college or university, and they are scholarship people. So the idea that your child is just wasting his or her time playing video games, not so much anymore. There are some real rewards and some real advantages. I think, I have some resistance to, you're just sitting in a room, working your thumbs on a control panel, but it is a legitimate sport, and there are legitimate rewards for doing well in it. So I guess we've got to say it's okay. It's an okay pursuit. I think the thing you have problems with is how much can you do, or how much time should be spent just on video games. But that will be up to each individual, I'm sure. And if he's on the varsity team or she's on the varsity team, then I'm sure they get a little more leeway to play a little more of whatever the game is. But the world is changing in fast ways, in ways I never would have, well, I couldn't imagine when I was a kid. It was like, if you played a sport, it had to involve a ball, pretty much, and you had to work on developing your physical skills. And very few people were actually rewarded with scholarships, but it was possible. So, having a passion for a certain area is real important for an ADHD child particularly. You gotta spend, as an ADHD parent, you have to spend more time identifying their strengths and abilities and passions than if you've got a neurotypical child. It's just, they need to have some positive things identified and worked on. I mean, if you knew, if you knew that, say, your child was really interested in videography and was, taking all the courses, all the electives in school and producing ads for the high school play or whatever, that's an area that will, for the foreseeable future, make him highly employable or her highly employable. So you need to encourage that. It's not going to be the way I grew up, say, and the way probably most of you out there grew up, where reading, writing, arithmetic, science, and history, you have to know those things. Why, I'm not sure. Most of that stuff had absolutely no relevance to occupations. Matter of fact, a great deal of what I learned was designed to show other people that you were educated. That you knew a little bit of history, a little bit of literature, a little bit of art, a little bit of Latin, say. But the practical applications of it, not much. So it's a brave new world out there, and as parents of ADHD children, we need to adjust our horizons appropriately. It's not the same way it was for us. It's not the same education system. The education system now they've basically taken all the free time out of the educational day, and they are drilling these kids all day long, which is very short-sighted and based on letting a bunch of people who aren't familiar with how the brain works make rules. But you've got to have your child's strengths, interests, passions identified. You've got to encourage them because that's probably the area he or she is going to end up in, and hopefully able to make a living. Okay, now I keep talking about my son, but he somehow, he's always a little bit creative, a little bit artistic. We tried to encourage that, and then he got interested in gemstones. No idea where that came from, but it was okay. And now basically he designs jewelry and makes some really neat looking stuff. That was never, we have no other jewelers in our family. We had no experience with gemstones or anything like that, other than my annual anniversary present for my wife. But we're just, that isn't the kind of things we do or did as a family. So the idea that he would find this interest and a passion even, listening to him talk about different gemstones and quality and all this other stuff is like, wow, he really knows this stuff. And it's important that your child have a passion area. And like I said, because of their interest-based attention system, they need to have a passion, because that's the only thing that's going to be easy for them to do. Easy in the sense that they can stay focused on it for a period of time. And so it's up to you to help them identify that and to keep your concerns to a minimum, or maybe just keep them to yourself, and let them learn about this area. Because like I said, those of us who grew up a while ago aren't really doing all that great a job predicting what the economy is going to be doing. So encourage his or her passions. Encourage him or her to pursue those passions and encourage it. That's the base message here today. I hope I didn't beat that up too much, but it's a really, I think, important point, because you're not going to force, fear, and punishment do not work with ADHD kids particularly well, as probably most of you have discovered. I tried all of that myself and didn't find it very effective at all. You've got to catch them on the stuff they enjoy and the stuff that they are just naturally good at, and just rub the heck out of that, encourage that like crazy. That helps them compensate for all the negative stuff they hear day to day from teachers and parents and so on. So you really, it's important to identify those areas and to really polish them up. Okay? All right. That's about all I've got today. We're fighting to get back on track after the New Year's, Christmas vacation holidays. So I'm sure we'll talk about that some more next time. Remember, we are trying to make the world safe for ADHD. We are trying to get changes in the education system that make it a better fit for ADHDers. And remember, ADHDers are outside-the-box thinkers. And no person who just thinks inside the box ever changes the world. So maybe your child will be the one that changes the world for the better. I sure hope so. Okay, we'll catch you next time. I am Dr. Terry James Gingras. I'm available at terrygingras.phd.com. That's Gingras, Gingras. And get any comments, put them in below, and we'll catch you next week. Thank you.